Okay, let's get right into it. Today's guest. Wow. Wow. I did say wow, right? I did say wow?
You did.
Wow. She is a college professor. And because it's a lot, I'm going to have to read off the card. Sorry, y'all. Inaugural Director of Curatorial Studies at Tufts University. She has a PhD in African American Studies. And now she is a social justice activist in a very, I want to use the word niche because it's an area that people don't think about. You know, racism, we always look at it like we go right back to Jim Crow and slavery or police brutality. We don't think about the other areas that it's very prevalent in. And we're going to talk about some of that today. So I want to introduce a very close person to me, Doctor. You're a doctor.
I am a doctor.
Dr. Kelli Morgan. Hi.
Hi.
What's going on?
Shit, what's up with you?
Welcome to Detroit.
It's good to be back.
Welcome back. So look, I know that in like these days and age, all of us is on a health kick. This is bad for you. That's bad for you. Don't eat that. Don't eat this. Do that. Eat some turmeric. Get some ginger.
Yeah.
You know, what's the other stuff? Apple cider vinegar.
Yeah.
And
shots.
we're all on it right now.
Yeah.
But then you come home to Detroit and the staple.
Every motherfucking time.
Coney Island.
Every time. It could be 7 o'clock in the morning. It could be 4 o'clock in the morning.
So no matter what health kick you on, you got to get some Coney Island.
Every time. And it's got to be Lafayette.
It got to be Lafayette. I was going to ask you which one's better, American or Lafayette.
Nobody goes to American.
What is the difference? What's the difference between American and Lafayette?
I don't think there actually is. I think Lafayette is more, it's like quainter. Right?
Really?
It's smaller.
Mm-hmm, it is.
It's been, I don't know if it's been there
It reminds
longer.
me of Mel's Diner.
Kind of does, right? The bathroom is down these really scary ass stairs under the floor. Like, they ain't take cars for like
a
decades.
long time, right?
Like, that shit was news when they started taking cars, right? Like, I saw that shit on the news and I lived in a different state.
Now, when a business decides to take credit cards and they hit the news, that's
like national.
That's national news.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Nah, that's my spot though.
Coney Island.
Yeah.
Got to get Coney Island. And your food of choice is?
Chili cheese fries and a coney with everything.
Ketchup or hot sauce?
Ketchup.
You look like...
I've never been like a hot sauce person.
What?
We weren't a huge hot sauce family.
Mm.
We weren't. My granddad, like, we did hot sauce and fish.
We did all the sauces.
But we ain't do, like, we wasn't a huge hot sauce family.
Wow. So, have you gotten your Coney Island from...
I have not gotten Lafayette. I had to get Leo's.
Was it...
Because sometimes I just need to taste, right? Like, I'll be here for, like, 3-4 more days.
Was it a good supplement?
It does the job. But, like, I'll go to Lafayette before I leave.
Make sure you go to Lafayette.
Yeah.
That's just a staple.
It's
you gotta
just like,
do it.
Got to.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if I have to get Coney when I come home, but I definitely got to get Captain J's.
Really?
Oh, that lemon pepper is...
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
I'm the same way about Olga's, too. Actually, I have a list. There's a list.
Okay.
Like, so, it's Lafayette, Pizza Populous, Pegasus, Astoria Bakery, Olga's, White Castle.
White Castle.
Yeah.
You know what? I do got to get liquor store pizza. I got to get liquor store pizza. Liquor store pizza.
Like,
I have to.
They're just staple things.
You're right.
Red Pop. Red Pop and Rock and Rye. I don't always have to, but that's a thing. A bag of Better Made chips. Like.
Yeah. And see, now it's Uncle Ray's chips.
Oh, we do have those.
Yeah, you got to get up on Uncle Ray's.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. oh, my God. It's so good. So, you know, you from Detroit. You've been here forever, and then you've been going for like...
I've been gone for 12 years.
12 years. Yeah. So, let's talk about home. We'll get to the other stuff later.
Okay.
Home, because I feel like the person you are came from somewhere, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And usually when you hear people's backstories, it's always the most interesting thing. So I'm looking at this fashionista right now. Sexy glasses. Sir. Oh, wait a minute. Because your thing is glasses,
you got some.
I gotta match you.
You got some glasses.
I gotta match you.
I'm proud of you.
Here we go.
Those are sweet.
Here we go.
Yeah, those is dope.
All right, so.
Okay. You are so stupid.
So home.
Home.
Mom, dad, grandparents. You are from a crazy area.
Oh, yeah.
Where.
Oh, yeah.
Like back in the day when we was little kids, there was a lot of hustling going on.
That's all that was going on.
You know, drag racing.
Yeah.
And you had a pretty gangster family.
True that.
So.
True that.
So let us know about your gangster roots.
Ugh, they are true. I always tell people too, Red. I'd be like in like you said, we'll get to this, but like in the industry that I work in, I'd be like, if people really knew,
right?
Like for real, like you really wouldn't be fucking with me in this board meeting right now, right? Like people have no idea. But yeah, you know, I grew up on Epworth. You know, I am a Joy Road kid to the heart.
Exit 9, come up off the freeway.
Even though that's far, like I'm Joy Road in Livernois.
Right.
Like that's like Herman Gardens, like not hating on them people, but I was like, nah. Epworth is like this like almost hidden neighborhood. Like you have to know that neighborhood is back there. Right, to even know how to get to it. But I don't know, you say it sometimes. People be like, word. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, you from the hood.
The hood.
I was like, yeah, from the hood. Granddad, we were one of the first black families in that area because that was a Jewish neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
In like the 30s.
Okay.
Right, I think my grandfather bought the house in like 1939, right, something like that. But for the most part, like he worked in and out of the factories, but he ran numbers, you know, for a living. I had an uncle who was a big, dope man on the east side. This is my father's youngest brother. You know, so they was in and out of the game in the 70s, early 80s. I would say from the late 60s to like the early 80s. The being in my family ain't play them games. At all. And they ain't let nobody fuck with us.
Good with the blam.
Nah, seriously. So it's like, I always say I was like, never really like immersed in it, but I was adjacent to it. Right. It wasn't like part of our kind of like everyday in-home family life, but it was totally a major part of my social life. Right. It's like we navigated that shit, you know, coming home from school. Like I remember our like male friends, you know, who didn't want to be in the game. You know, you got dudes that's like 16, 17, like recruiting because we like 12, you know, 11. And like finding ways around the dope boys, you know, so we didn't have to like confront, you know, that kind, or I would say so our male friends, right, didn't have to confront that kind of like, nah, I ain't really fucking with this. I'm just trying to go home.
Right.
Kind of thing. Which, interestingly, that kind of navigation, among other things, you know, helps me a lot in the work.
Yeah, it always comes full circle. I say the best businessmen used to be hustlers. Because it's this thing about when you hustling, you already don't trust people.
Right.
So you have to be able to read personalities and body language because it's a life or death situation.
Yes, it is.
So when you step into the white collar world or what other kind of world, you peep it so much and you're able to navigate through that.
And I think we have a radar for it. I think it's very specific to Detroit. Like people ask me all the time, like, how do you know? And how did you do? And how did you come up with? I be like, I'm from Detroit.
Right. A lot of people don't really get that.
They don't be knowing. And I'll be like, you know, everything that you hear that's got to fucked up about Detroit ain't necessarily untrue.
Right. But it's not in as much of an abundance as you think
as you think it is.
Yeah. Like I've been out of the country and people think that it's like, do you carry a gun? I go, well, yeah. Yeah.
I stopped when I left. Like when we met, remember I carried, but like I stopped because I was moving to like Western Massachusetts. Like, you know, who the fuck needs a gun out there?
I don't know. I
mean, now, yeah.
So here it is. You are in the hood. In the 80s.
In the 80s.
And the 90s, which was like crack everything,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Dope things everywhere. People selling dope everywhere. People getting killed everywhere. It's this little girl that's growing up, and her parent, her folks is in that world somewhat, but she gets sent to private school in the burbs.
Because my mama wasn't having it.
So what is it like? You're this person that has all this grit, and you're in this arena now. I'm gonna call it an arena. You're in this arena with all of these people who eat crumb kits and hold their pinkies up. Everything's
Not everybody.
Nice. Not everybody, but the mass majority.
Right.
How did you even navigate through that?
That was my mom, right? Because she would always say, "I need you to know how." Navigate wasn't the word she used to use. Exist. I need you to know how to exist in both worlds. And my mother is like so good for like saying some shit, but like never giving you the context, right? Of like why she's saying it. So it was interesting to go to private school. So I would start with like middle school. And I had like white girlfriends. You know, like white friends at school. So it's like Abby's having the sleepover or whatever. I could never go. I used to be so upset. Oh my God, like devastated.
Excuse me.
And then I got to high school. No, I won't even say high school. I got to college. And what I started, you start to see what I call is behind the curtain, right, into white America. And I was like, this is why my mom would never oh, thank God. Right?
Oh, wow.
She would never let me go.
She seen Get Out before it got made, huh?
Yes. Gotcha. Right? That type shit. Same thing, upper middle class Black families. The upper middle class Black world, right? We're all aspiring to that to some degree. There ain't nothing wrong with that. Major fucking issues. Like I had friends in high school, parents were like cellists in the DSO. Dads were like execs at Chrysler, but like dad was like transactional. So dad is only around when I need some money.
Gotcha.
Right? Mom is traveling the world literally because she's this world-class cellist. So kids are at home doing whatever the fuck, right? They want to do whenever they want to do it.
While your parents was on your head.
Yeah, Gotcha. And I was like, oh, the other half, because in my mind, as 14, 15 years old, I was like, we just need more, like if my parents had more access, right? If they had more money, like life would be so much better. And then going to friends' houses, Sherwood Forest, Rochester Hills, Bloomfield Hills. I was like, oh, no, y'all got some serious motherfucking issues. Like
kids is falling apart because there's nobody there.
Right. And I was like, interesting.
So would you say you was just always been a very observant person? You was able to see past the surface?
Yeah.
Even as a kid?
Had to be, because I was by myself a lot. You know what I'm saying? And so that was more my grandfather. Pay attention to where you at, because you may have to call somebody to come and get you.
Right.
I had a very keen sense of direction, as a kid.
Yeah.
Because again, I was by myself a lot. My mom worked a lot, so she left me with friends in a lot of places. Right. And, I was never like unsafe, but I never necessarily knew when she was coming back. So sometimes certain friends, and those friends were like her like besties, right? Like my godmothers. So I could be with them for months, sometimes.
Yeah. I remember as a kid, 8 years old, it was nothing to be at home alone. Mama say, don't you let nobody in this damn house. Don't you open that damn door.
Don't you open the fucking door for nobody.
So as an adult, when I heard that it was like against the law to leave your child at home because things be happening at people's houses, I was like,
they
what?
Let me at home on time, right?
They wasn't smart enough to not open the door? That's
just dumb.
Oh, y'all ain't got your ass whooped when y'all was a kid.
Mom ain't start leaving me at home by myself till I was probably like 11, 12. 6th grade, 7th grade.
That is still, people still get sitters for 11-year-olds.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah, nah.
Yeah.
That's when I first, that was my moment I discovered hip hop. That was when hip hop became, my lifeblood. Because Rap City
Yeah.
It was like my thing.
Mm-hmm. You know they brought it back, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Tigger and everything.
Really?
Freestyling and
okay, I'm gonna have to watch it.
Yep.
In the booth.
Last one I seen was Toby Nigway. How you say his name?
Nwigwe.
Man.
Yeah, you murdered that shit.
Sorry, Toby. You're a fresh rapper. Okay, so from the hood, like Coney Island. You're going to Mercy Private School. You're observing the difference in cultures. And then you hit college. You start to see it even more. You go all the way.
I go all the way. I go Angela Davis.
To a PhD.
Yeah, I go complete Angela Davis.
PhD in African American Studies.
Yeah.
So you just been into the culture the whole time. But then you switch.
Not really.
In a sense.
Kinda. But
I'm just saying, as far as the job is concerned.
Yeah.
You would think if you go get a PhD in African American Studies, that's what you're going to teach, which you do teach it.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You go to curating in large art museums.
Because I'm always doing the hard shit.
No. How does that morph even happen?
So, yeah, without the long, drawn-out story, I was studying art history. Well, I was actually studying history. I was studying African American history.
Right.
In the history department at Wayne State. It was a master's degree. Mm-hmm. Wanted to study Black women's intellectual history.
Oh.
Which a lot of the not a lot, but key professors in that department were like, that's not something you can study.
Oh, wow.
Which I knew was bullshit because I was working in the African American Studies department. So Dr. Melba Boyd, who was the chair at the time, distinguished professor now, my mentor, was like, fuck them, just go get your PhD, or you just gonna apply for PhD programs, in FAM next year.
Right.
But I was still in the master's program, so I could take whatever I wanted to take, and I took an African American art history course.
Oh, and that just popped your cherry.
It did.
Was that the right thing to say? That probably wasn't the right thing to say. But
that's okay. But it's super dead. That and Monica Blair and her mother and Tiff Massey, which
Tiff
was
Massey,
huge, like besties at the time. And Tiff encouraged me to take the class. I took the class, and I'm a nerd, right? So, in doing more research into the artists that I was interested in, I was like, okay, our history is super behind the curve when it comes to Black artists. Black studies, or African American studies, is really behind the curve when it comes to visual art. So there's a space, there's an absence.
Got it.
Right? And I was like,
Put yourself right in there.
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, okay, so now you're art. You curate art museums. That means you go find the art, you buy the art, you sit there and say, no, 2 inches to the left. No. Go back 1/4 of an inch. Right there.
No, I ain't that asshole curator.
But
I was like, my preparators hate them curators.
So, but you really put together this exhibit for people to go and see somebody's work that you've never met, majority of the time.
Right.
For them to interpret it however they want to interpret it and see it in such a huge light.
Right.
That's what you do. How do you look at a piece of art and say, that's museum material?
Ooh, that's a good question. I always say we always say like, oh, we're being objective. But no, curators, we curate and we pick the shit that we like.
Really?
Yes.
So you're like a tastemaker in a sense.
Right, we are. And it's like, I think overall, the field doesn't necessarily like to admit that, right? But we are. Not granted, if you're a responsible curator, which a lot of us are, majority of us are, you ain't just like walking down the street like you. But there are people who do that shit.
Okay.
For me, I'm looking at work and artists that have something to say. Where it's like the way you are applying like formal elements, the way you are using materiality in the materials that you use, whether it's paint, because, we think about installation work or sculpture. I'm super interested in artists that can do it with shit that you just don't even think about. Like,
innovators.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, somebody like Marion Hassinger that can take like a plastic bag, like plastic grocery bags, and just create a masterpiece out of it. Like, wow. I'm looking for people that can do stuff like that. Now, the interesting thing is I'm actually not a curator of contemporary art, but I work in contemporary frameworks, right? Because I work through a lot of cultural studies, Black studies, and Black feminist frameworks. So I always say I get pulled into contemporary art kicking and screaming because I'm not super versed, you know, in contemporary art. Mm-hmm. But in thinking about that, like, and thinking about emerging artists, like, what am I looking for? That's what I'm typically looking for. Like, what does the shit say? Right. Outside of the fact that it's just a sweet piece.
Right. So it's not all about, oh, you can draw a picture really good.
Right.
It's about the whole message. Right. Do you think it was like that in 100 years ago?
No. Oh my God. No.
It was just like,
oh, well,
wow,
I think
you can mold clay. That's cool.
I think it was. I think the message was whiteness.
We're going to get into that. We're going to get into that. So here's another question, because it always, when I, you know, just being regular folk, mm-hmm. I could think back as far as Van Gogh, and I know it goes way further than that, what I'm about to say, but I could think as close to today's time as a Basquiat. Mm-hmm. These are people who never got to see the peak of their monetary value in their art.
Yeah.
Is that a thing to where the art that is the most valuable, you're nobody till somebody kills you, in a sense? Like, you got to be dead? Like, how does that work?
I mean, that's something we're trying to stop. Basquiat is a very particular case, right? This is something that in the art world, I could get in a lot of trouble for saying, but I'm going to say it anyway, because it's the thing that nobody likes to say, right? Okay. About Basquiat's history and about his career. The art market, the art museums, the two together.
Okay.
Were really art history, right? So I should say the three together were created specifically to uphold like the colonial project, like European colonization, right? So we always think European colonization, Native American genocide, translating slavery. True. It's what they did to the people.
Right.
So they did a whole other thing with all those people's things. Right? With all the things that they made, with all the things that they had passed down generation to generation, right? Took it, built a market around it, right? That gave it kind of a fictive value that only benefited the thieves.
Right.
Then they built buildings to put it all in, called them museums. 250 years later, here we are, right?
Stuff is priceless.
How this applies to Basquiat. That approach never really changed, right? Because the art market never changed.
Okay.
So it was like, if we can do it to people historically, if we can do it to nations, can we do it to individual people? He is the first.
He's the first. So Basquiat is a representative of ancient Egyptian artifacts taken, the nose getting knocked off the Sphinx in modern day time.
Nobody knows that part.
Wow. So,
or I should say the general public doesn't know that part.
So we just gonna skip this one. I had a pattern, but we getting into it. So now that we done got into that, you have worked in a few different major museums. Mm-hmm. And the very thing you're talking about, you were able to see it in real time.
Yeah.
So you're now uncovering the sustainability of racism through art and museums.
Ooh, honey.
And
that shit fucked me up, but yeah.
I was going to say, how much of a culture shock was it? One, for you, and then two, for the people that was like, oh shit, she knows.
So for when I was at the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, the response was like, oh, it was like this very, like patronizing, right?
Yeah.
Where it was like, and it wasn't everybody, right? Because there are people it ain't just me. Like, there are other people in the field, who know and who do this work too or try to affect it. But for those who are maintaining it, it was just like, oh, she's so cute. She doesn't know. She doesn't get it. Like, she's never going to be able to do that.
Wow.
Right? Because I was literally trying to dissect whiteness, right? What I call excavating. So I was like trying to excavate the permanent collection to say, this shit is constructed. It's all white supremacy. It's all right here in the literal fucking paintings. So it was like this hush thing. So I would do these gallery tours, right? To like spell it out for people.
Right.
In the Philadelphia arts community and even the kind of general public around Philly, like, loved it. But they wouldn't let me do the tours on the days that the museum was open. Oh. All right. So going back to like, being a kid in the hood, navigating around dope. So I just navigated around it. Right.
Right.
Got with like the guest services staff who were all Black, right? Who were all cool as fuck. And I was like, yo, doing these things on Mondays, right? The institution doesn't want it to happen. I've put out, like, I've promoted it. I had my students because I was teaching at Temple. I was lecturing at Moore. Did a bunch of stuff at like Bryn Mawr and University of Art. So I had this large like art student population. Right. Pretty much was like, tell everybody on your social media channels that I'm doing this thing. Right. And then I just told the guest services staff, people are going to show up. I just need you to let them in because they my students.
Wow.
And that's how I got people in the galleries. So PAFA was like, how the fuck is she getting all these people into these things? Right. That was one of the ways that I did it. By the time and I thought it was just unique to PAFA. By the time I got to the Indianapolis Museum of Art, similar things started to happen. And I was like, oh no, this is the field. So it's not just something that I can just do around a project, right? Or around a particular work of art. Mm-hmm. There was no way I was going to be able to do that.
You got to infiltrate.
I got to build an entire fucking infrastructure.
Wow.
So I started like doing my reconnaissance work around the field itself. Mm-hmm. Students, curators, registrars, museum conservators, like preparers. The shit goes so deep, across.
Racism's deep.
Yeah. Across departments. Everybody was having the same issue. So it was either gender discrimination, sexual harassment, whatever, racial discrimination, like just ridiculous stuff, or class discrimination. So it's like, okay, I have a skill set, both as a scholar and as a person, to like address these issues. Let me test some shit out. So I started testing some stuff out in Indy.
Wow. And what happened?
They tried to kill me. No.
Okay. So let's just get to it. So you was in Alabama, some stuff popped off. You're in Indiana, and it's really popping off. And you got to see like the J.R. Ewing style of...
Your ass went back to...
Yeah, I went all the way back. Nigga. Like I'm going to ruin her and we're going to just tear her down all the way down to, scary times.
Yeah.
How...
Yeah.
What? First of all, wow.
Yeah.
Because that's the last thing I thought I would ever hear you say that was going on.
And that's what I was thinking myself, like, it's fucking art. Like, it's not the CIA, but it kind of is.
But it kind of is.
Yeah.
If it's a major component of the plan, it's a major component.
Yes. It's culture war.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly. So it got to the point to where they forced you
to resign.
To resign from your good job that you was very good at.
That's okay, I got a better one.
Yeah, and they actually went after people who was on your side.
They did.
But they slipped up.
Like a bug. Yeah, like a bug.
What happened?
Yeah, like a mug. They posted this really racist job description. So I resigned in July of 2020. Right, so it's the height of COVID. The shit was crazy. And like most institutions, it's like, oh, she's an angry black woman, right?
Right.
Disgruntled employee, whatever. But I had, in my resignation letter, I had delineated out all of the racist fuck shit that had happened over the last year and a half. Yes, I did. Right? So nothing really happened, other than people being like, that's fucked up. And then 7 months later, they post this job description that basically is asking for a museum director. Like, they're trying to fill the museum director post. Now, backstory about why the museum director post is even open.
Yeah.
Is because the one senior staff member of color who should have moved into that position. Yeah. Was forced to resign because he was helping me and my colleagues do the work that we were doing. Right. Right. Amongst them, there was some other shit going on too. But the white director at the time, basically promoted himself, right? Had made himself president of the institution, which is a typical model. That's the university. He was like model. House of Cards, huh? Yeah. Okay. Right. So he's like, I'm gonna look for a new museum director. So he posts this position. Unbeknownst to him, as he had been, kind of bad-mouthing me for 6 months, the New York Times reporter that broke the story, was from Indy, had studied at IUPUI.
So she already knew what was up.
So she knew, she had a little bit of history of what was going on in the institution. Her name was Sarah Barr, and thanks to her, she tweeted, because I didn't even know, like some folks had told me it was coming. And I was like, that shit is just another day. Yeah. At that institution. That's not surprising. Whatever.
Did the job description literally say?
Yeah, I didn't say what it said. So it said something about helping us diversify our audience while maintaining our traditional core white audience.
It literally said that.
It literally said that. Yeah.
And that shit spread it.
It was overnight. That's the first time I'd ever been involved in something that had gone viral. I went to bed, the Friday that Sarah's article came out, which was, the Friday New York Times. I woke up the next morning to, between my social media and my email and, just my phone. Yeah. It was probably, 48 messages. And I was like...
What's going on?
People know me, people call, but yeah, I don't be getting messages and shit like that. So I was like, and it was all journalists. That was the other thing. It was all journalists. So I was like, what the fuck happened? And what happened was Sarah had tweeted that evening, articles out, this bad, racist job description. This is what Dr. Kelli Morgan was talking about 6 months ago.
So everybody's it blew up Dr. Kelli Morgan, and they on your whole head.
They was on my head.
So at this point now, you already had your ammunition because you kept receipts. Now you got proof. Yeah. You're still there though.
No, I was already gone. Yeah, I was in Atlanta by that time.
Okay, yeah. So then when they started trying to come after you, that was before you had left. Yeah. Okay, got you. Yep. So now you're out of town. Stuff is going crazy. You getting interviewed all over the place.
Yeah, that shit was crazy.
Still.
Yeah.
I just watched one the other day about the same thing. Yeah. So it's you're almost like this person who just discovered something new, but it's really been here all of this time.
It has. And and there's been a lot of people, right? This has been happening to Black, or say BIPOC, right? Black, Indigenous people of color, curators, and women curators for decades. There's just a culture of silence, right? So most of the time we're forced, the shit happens to us, we're forced to sign NDAs, so we can't say anything about it. So I have very prominent, white female colleagues in the field who could tell you some stories, but
it's not just racism.
No,
it's also sexism.
Yes,
like you said earlier, they look at you. It's see, as a Black dude who don't pay attention to much, I only thought, for a long time, I only thought that they had the stereotype of stupid with women when it comes to blondes.
Oh, yeah.
Because they always said blondes are stupid. Yeah. Now, I mean, of course, it's not true. But I never really even thought that the pretty girl walks in the building and you just immediately get downplayed. So here you are, a woman. Because you're a woman, they're treating you a certain way. Because you look nice, they're treating you a certain way. Because you're black, they're treating you a certain way. Because you're from Detroit, they're treating you a certain way. So you got all of these things that are not downfalls being treated as a downfall, yet you're still in these arenas fighting your ass off.
Oh, yeah. Like, because I just started to, like, I stopped code switching. You know, like, I cuss in my lectures. Not like we cuss.
What'd that say?
Code switching. You're so smart. But yeah, I stopped code switching. And then I started saying it, you know, in lectures to people, right? Because you got, you know, I just wanted Black folks to understand that you can show up in these spaces and be who the fuck you are. Like, fuck these motherfuckers. And I also understood that was like a very Detroit. Yes. That's a very Detroit sentiment.
Yes.
That is not an East Coast sentiment.
So that was actually the one I say I'm going to skip that one. You just went right around to that. So Detroit is the only city, the only place next to Haiti where the Black people fought back and took that shit.
So did.
Well, South Africa too now.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. That's true.
You know, but in America, we're literally the only city where the riots.
Yeah, major urban city.
Turned out with white people leaving and Black people staying.
For decades.
And we developed this personality of, I wish a motherfucker
would. I wish a motherfucker would.
Right? So we're in these arenas, and now you move to Massachusetts. And then you move to Alabama. And then you move to Indiana. And you're seeing, and, you know, I hate to put it in these frames, in this way, but you're seeing the complete opposite. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah, totally.
You're seeing the opposite where the racism is still very prevalent. How do you even, because you're the only person that's like,
fuck that shit.
Fuck that. And they're like, no, shut up. What are you doing?
Yes.
Whoa.
Yes.
How does that even?
Not so much in Birmingham, right? Because of 63.
Okay.
In like SCLC, Shuttlesworth, Abernathy, right? Like civil rights had its like showdown to a certain degree in Birmingham.
Yeah.
Which was interesting to me when I got to Indy, because I used to say all the time, which without even necessarily knowing, but I would be like, if we can end segregation in Birmingham, we can end segregation everywhere.
Yeah.
Right? Which was SCLC's sort of mantra at that time. And I would always, if I can end it here, I can end it everywhere.
Right.
If I can end it here, I can end it everywhere. Which was me like being like, maybe I need to go back and look at like Project C and like look at that plan and study it. Maybe I need to look at like SNCC's Freedom Summer Plan. Like, what are other like civil rights grassroots organizing strategies? Right. Right. That I can literally go to my office bookshelf, pull down, flip through, figure out. Right. So I did that. Other like aspects of it, Rennie, was totally like embracing that Detroitness.
Yeah.
You know, and saying like, oh yeah, that's the different thing. Like, I show up in the space differently.
Yeah.
You know, so it ain't even so much like what I know. It's the fact that I'm being authentically who I am.
And you're not scared.
Nope. You know, so it was like, even beyond code switching, like I started coming to work with like my Tribe Called Quest hoodies and like Air Max 90s. Right. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the students, of course, was like eating it up.
Right.
But, you know, my colleagues was just like, what the fuck? But then eventually, like, that became, like, that's just kind of my thing. Even just my fashion sense in general.
Yeah.
You know, where, like,
you're not wearing the tight, wide business skirt and, and 2-inch heels and the cheesy jacket.
Right. I'm not doing
I'm fly up in this mug.
Right. Yeah. Completely. You know, and it just works. And so I always tell people, it's like, be who the fuck you are. Like, I'm very transparent. You know, I'll talk even my issues. Like, Lord knows I have my issues. And I'm like, yep, I do. I got them. And this is what makes me unique in this work as well.
Absolutely. So you no matter what, with so many things thrown at you. Mm-hmm. On top of being a professor, teaching, it's just a lot.
It's a lot. Yeah. I was crying today. Because I just be like, oh.
But you know, I mean, I do a lot of either military references or sports references.
He's like, here's another war reference. Yeah.
Now, I'm not gonna give you a war one today. This one is boxing.
Okay.
You know, outside of Floyd Mayweather, because he don't get hit. You know, you've had boxers who they got hit a lot, and they were sitting in that corner like, I don't want to get up. Because that guy hits really hard.
Oh, shit. Yeah, that was me 2 years ago. Yes.
But they got up. They got back in there.
You have to.
And they was focused enough to see that opening and knocked his ass out.
Yes. Yeah, the throat punch.
The throat punch. Well, you can't punch somebody in the throat.
I know, but
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, you know, it's very understandable. I think that's the part about fighting the good fight that people don't realize is that no, you're gonna sometimes almost lose.
Shit, sometimes you do.
Sometimes you do. Lose. Sometimes you do, but you just keep fighting. So it's like I've coined you as a freedom fighter.
Have you?
I have.
Thank you.
Yeah, like
I feel like I ain't nowhere even close, but
I mean, now we're never gonna say we're as good as who we would consider to be the greats.
Right.
You know, like Lenny Kravitz will never say he was as good as Jimi Hendrix.
Right.
You know, but he's probably as good as, maybe even better. You know, Prince wouldn't say he was better than Jimi Hendrix. Mm-hmm. And we know Prince is cold. So, yeah, I understand. You know, out of respects,
right,
you just wouldn't. I've seen an interview with Mike Tyson and Muhammad Ali. And Muhammad Ali, they asked Muhammad Ali if you fought Mike Tyson when you was in your prime. He was like, I'm telling you now, I'm fast. It'd be hard for him to hit me. But if he hit me, and Mike Tyson was like, nah. No. But Mike Tyson could have probably knocked him out. Yeah. So I totally understand that. But at the end of the day, when you see such a huge issue and you step up front, whether somebody's on the side of you, the back of you, or anything, you step right up front and you say, I'm going to confront this.
Yep.
And you're confronting it not for you.
Nope.
For everybody around and behind you.
Yep.
So they could have the benefits that they're supposed to have. That's a freedom fighter.
That's period. What it is.
You know, and if somebody say something different, I got two hands. Can opener and haymaker. Period. I mean, that's what it is. So look, I was watching the interview you just did.
Uh-huh.
I'm making beats. For those of them, I make beats. And I was like, oh yeah, the interview. So I put the YouTube on while I'm making the beats.
Uh-huh.
And I'm listening, and it really made me think about something.
Okay.
Made me think about hip-hop, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to the purity of hip-hop, the art form of hip-hop, it is taken far more serious outside of the country.
Oh, yeah.
You know, here it's about how much money you make and, you know, the superficial reasons. I'm not saying that there isn't a scene or
I feel you.
A lane for purists, but when you leave the country, it's an overabundance of people that just love the art form.
Right.
When it comes to really learning the context of racism, and when it comes to actually getting at it, do you feel that it's in the same realm of hip hop where outside of the country, it's just more, they care about it more?
Racism?
Yes. Than America.
No, I think it's worse in the States. Like, I think that's a mythology.
I said, do they care about it more outside of the States?
Outside of the States. No. No, because I'm thinking particularly European context, right? So like the French have this bullshit national narrative, right? Like race doesn't exist because we're all French. You know, you know, the British have this like, that was so long ago, you know, it doesn't matter kind of thing.
Why are you bringing up old shit?
Yeah. You know, I think here it's, I think the difference is because slavery happened here, right? Like when you think about the French and the British, Portuguese, Spanish, they had colonies, right? Like slavery didn't occur like on the mainland, right? It happened here and it became the lifeblood and the foundation of our country, right? You know,
it's a business,
right? You know, so there's no way you gonna say that, and people still say it, you know. Here, I think we're tired of it, right? I think we're at this point now. I think we've been there for probably about a century. Yeah. You know, but it's like people are just sick of it because it's stupid.
It is.
It's so stupid. It's based on absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's literally stupid. So you have young. I hear this a lot from the younger generation. You know, when it's a movie about the history, it's always about bad things that happen to us, and they're tired of being told they were slaves. How do you feel about the mind frame of the youth when it comes to racism?
I think they should really study slavery. You know what I'm saying? I think if we, as a community, across the board, not just African Americans, but just the diaspora, if we really knew what slavery was like, how we masterfully navigated that shit on a day-to-day basis. Like, I've always been proud of that. You know, slavery was never something that I was ever ashamed of. One, because we survived it. Two, the ways. Like, once I read, like, Stephanie Camp's work, you know, reading somebody like Jennifer Morgan's work, like reading Deborah Gray White's work, and learning how there were strategies, there were frameworks, there were ways that we stole away. There were ways, like, we stole ourselves. Yeah. You know, away. We stole our time back. Yeah. Right? The ways that we took, as we say, right, making something out of nothing. So you give us rotten peaches and we create a dessert. You know, you give us entrails and we create a motherfucking delicacy. Right? You give us warm burlap, you know, cotton sacks that we're no longer using to store, you know, cotton or to pick cotton. And we create literal fashions out of that shit. Right. Right? Because that's how fucking dope we are. Right. And it's like, if kids knew that, like, you'd be surprised. Even my white students, you know, when I'm just like, slave owners, plantation owners weren't fucking stupid. So these were not just like stupid, baseless people, you know, that were just born to be slaves. These were engineers, right? These were agricultural masters. If you own fucking land in the Chesapeake, you know what the primary plantation crop was in the Chesapeake? It's tobacco, right? Shit ain't native to the U.S. So you need a labor force that not only knows how to plant it, but knows how to cultivate it and harvest that shit. So you to the level
in an environment that you gonna make money. Come from.
Right. The same shit with rice in South Carolina. Right.
That part.
So you are buying enslaved people from specific areas in Africa that know how to work the land over here.
So they just wasn't necessarily just grabbing whoever.
Hell no. No. But because, again, we as a community don't know shit about slave history, right? Or the history of slavery.
And now we don't want to.
Right. So anytime I encounter that, you know, in my classes or, you know, even just with younger, and I'm just like, I mean, I'm always like, here, read this. That's the other thing. We don't like to read.
We don't.
You know what I mean? And to learn this history, you would have to read. Even just knowing the history of, like, slave rebellions.
I think in this day and age, one has to be sparked. So when it's somebody like yourself who is very approachable for a young person, and you're not scared to speak their language. You say something, and that sparks a light bulb.
They listen, yeah.
And then they start paying attention. That's why you have students. You wouldn't have any if you couldn't do it.
Yeah, my wait list was crazy this semester.
Wow.
I was shocked. I was super shocked because I've never had wait lists that long.
So when people speak about history now, do you see them speaking past 70 years ago? Like 50 years ago, 40 years ago, 30 years ago. Do we even see what we're like?
It's getting there.
History is literally something that happened, right?
It's still happening.
Right, it's still happening. But do we even consider the things of today or even yesterday do we put it in the same pot of history as the Black history that we all know?
We don't. You know what's a good analogy of that, right? We was watching this the other day, like the kid with the new moonwalk.
Yes.
Right? So you see a ton of people on TikTok and Instagram that are our age.
Trying to do it.
Fucking all the way up, right?
It is the worst.
The worst.
But that new moonwalk is
it's
fresh.
Sweet, right?
Yeah.
We were always the center, right? Like our generation between we're in our, early 40s to early 50s.
Right.
We're the history at this point.
Exactly.
We don't really necessarily like to think of ourselves as such.
We are, but see, they don't use history when they talk about it.
They don't.
They use the word old school.
Exactly.
That's old school. And to me, old school and history don't have the same respect.
I don't think that's true.
Old school be like, man, that's old school.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
It's like blowing it off like that shit whack.
Yeah. Exactly. But no, history is history.
Has a respect.
Like
who has that history are like the generation before us. Dougie and Curtis Blow and DMC and
like where you see us in museums.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of us in museums, right? So I seen Dame Dash speaking on the Grammys because I guess they shut out Kanye West or whatever. And me personally, I like Dame Dash.
Okay.
I like Dame Dash because Dame Dash don't give a fuck. He's like, no, have your own.
Yeah, as we should.
A lot of times his delivery is so aggressive that it turns people off. I like the aggression. That's
because your ass is aggressive.
Yes. I might not like it today, but I'm very aggressive.
Yeah.
So he is like, we need to stop trying to upgrade their arena to fit us.
Yeah.
And just make our own arena. So now in your arena, art museums, do you feel like at some point we need to stop trying to be in their arena and just create our own large museums? And even a further question, is there new avenues to have that art museum value for artists of today without that bullshit?
That's the question, right? That's the thing. So I love whenever, like you hear like Jay and Puffy talk about this shit all the time too. If it were that easy, we 3 generations in now of like major Black wealth in sports and entertainment.
Yeah.
Name one that has the cachet and the longevity of a Rockefeller or a Carnegie or a Ford or a J.P. Morgan or a Harvard or a Yale, a Princeton. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It ain't that fucking easy. And even when we do it, they quite literally pull the rug right out from under us. Tulsa wasn't an anomaly.
Right.
Right? Tulsa was one in
many when they bombed a neighborhood in Philly.
That had happened for a series of probably 15 years. the thing we talk about Tulsa, Rosewood, right? Places like that. Another thing that was happening that the general public also doesn't know, an article came out about this a couple months ago. There were so many black towns that they just flooded. Right? So you go to places and there are like these lakes.
My mom lived in one.
Yeah. They just flat the fuck out flooded. All over the South.
It was a neighborhood called Bonton.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a neighborhood that they put a lake in, right? Like my mom remembers, like they put the lake in.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I went to Texas to go and find family, I went to her old neighborhood. And so you get off the freeway, and as you turn into Bonton, you see these, it looks like a freeway overpass with no overpass.
Right.
And it's these giant gates that close. And Bonton is kind of concaved in.
Mm-hmm.
And she said that the whole neighborhood would flood. And they would close I was like, what was the gates for? She was like, for the flood. And I'm like, as a little kid, they don't understand. But it was to keep the water in.
Yes, it was.
And flood you guys in.
Yeah.
And those gates are there now. I seen them with my own eyes.
Hurricane Katrina in that situation was a modern day version of that. The interstate system was a federally mandated system in the 60s, post-civil rights.
Right.
To run the freeways through black communities.
That was thriving.
Yes.
Absolutely.
You can look that shit up. But
right.
So this is why, like, in my work, where I'm, working primarily in art museums, I work specifically on whiteness, and white supremacy. Because when we talk about racism and I think race, it puts it on us.
Mm-hmm.
The strategy, the foundation, the literal fucking law, it's them.
They made it up.
Yes. And I'm like, so we need to know these things, en masse, to navigate it differently.
Right. And so what makes this whole thing so interesting is that we haven't talked about politics not one time. We haven't talked about Democrats, Republicans. We haven't talked about none of that. But we're talking about so much racial bullshit that happens.
Yeah.
And that's the part that people don't understand.
They just super miss.
Which is why I was like, I'm getting this damn interview. because I don't think that the information is getting put out here. This is why we have this kind of studio, because now we can tell our own story.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very appreciative that you was able to come through, get fly.
Thank you.
Put your cool glasses on with your white teeth. And talk about some stuff that is very needed. Like it's needed to be heard from a friendly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's real.
Not a real old person that's just mad at everything. And I'm not saying they don't have a reason to be mad.
Yeah.
But it's just different when it's from us.
Yeah.
Younger folk. I ain't saying young folk, because we ain't in our 20s.
We ain't super old.
Yeah,
I know. Super old. I be feeling old though.
But we still understand the language. Yeah. We maybe can't do the new moonwalk, but
but it's our language.
It's our language. We are creators in every sense of the word.
Yeah.
And that shit spreads.
It does. This ain't gonna stop. It just looks different.
Yeah. So I commend you on all the work you're doing. I know it's hard, and
hard.
I can't wait for stuff to uncover. I'm hoping that it doesn't just be infectious in the art world.
I am too.
But it's more so infectious with the general public. Yep.
And we're starting with art world because it's like, I hate to say low hanging fruit, but it's like that's where we have to. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, that's my plan, right? Is to build it to a place where it's like popular curriculum or curriculum for like popular audience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not like you're not supposed to tell the history that they telling. You just tell all of it.
All of it.
The whys and the whats and whatnot.
What it actually is, what it's actually doing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're doing that. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Thanks for coming by. We went through all the cue cards up in here.
Did we?
Yeah, we went through that one. We went through that one. And that one. And that one. And that one.
You didn't skip that one? That's good.
Nope. So I was gonna talk about code switching, but you did that. So did that one and that one. You did that one. Here's code switching. That one.
You so dumb.
That one. Boom. And that's a wrap. Thank you very much.